Welcome everybody to Bitcoin Live on the Sunday. With me today is a very special guest, John Gott. Welcome to Bitcoin Live.
Hello, great to be here.
Yeah, so I've been following you for a while, and you have been podcasting like crazy, that's a topic in itself. But you're also the founder of the Digital Gold Foundation, the Digital Gold Dollar, and of course the crypto fair value concept, the benchmark. So we got a lot of ground to cover. Of course, we're also going to talk a little bit about the markets because everybody is, I think, in a depression.
That's okay. It's going to retrace to 82, and then it'll be off to about 150, 165 on Bitcoin. Unfortunately, the world follows Bitcoin instead of fundamentals, and so we're still pegged to it, tied to it in a way. Bitcoin goes up, everything goes up. Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down harder. That's got to end. Because if it doesn't end, BlackRock, which controls the ETF, which controls 7 out of 8 mining rigs, those people literally can go, let's crash the whole market. And they just have to crash Bitcoin. And then the whole market. Now, when the entire thing can literally be collapsed because you pull one little peg out and the Jenga set crumbles, no one's going to invest in that space. But if we want real true adoption, we have to move to fundamentals, say, Bitcoin, you had a great ride. I hope you can continue higher. But now it's time to look at better coins.
Okay, yeah, we'll park the Bitcoin stuff for now. I know you're very vocal about it, and I respect different.
Not that I'm anti-Bitcoin. I just think that Bitcoin has to earn it, right? So up to this point, you say FOMO FUD charts of emotion go upright for Bitcoin. Okay, well then forever it goes up to trillions of dollars, but that's not reality. And so instead, what we do is we looked at Bitcoin in December of 24 and set a benchmark of it. The reason being a tenth of a trillion, 100 billion poured into the market, but all the gaslighting funneled it all into one coin, Bitcoin. So you say, okay, but what was behind it? Thoreau says, build your dreams in the heavens, but put a foundation under them. So when we look at what was under Bitcoin when it was valued at $1.983 trillion in December, it had about 80 million users. It had about 6 billion transactions that year. It had about $13.5 trillion in transaction value that year. It had about 905 developers, 55 being core. And it would take about $21 billion to 51% attack it for a minute if you could, but you can't. And inflation of 0.8283 repeating. Great. Now that we know that, for Bitcoin to go to 200,000, in my opinion, it needs 160 million users. It needs 12 billion transactions. It needs 27 trillion in transaction. It needs to go to 1,800 developers. And it should take 42 billion to attack it for 1 minute if you could. If it's going to go to 1 million, likewise, it needs to go to 800 million users, which I think it can. That's a tenth of the population. It's possible. So, okay, good. Then it can get to 1 million, but it doesn't get there for free. It has to earn it like everybody else in equities and any other discipline. So you're looking at 800 million users, 60 billion transactions, 135 trillion in transactions, 9,000 developers, almost 10. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you set that peg, then you can set it to any coin. You could say another coin then that has 8 million users and 600 million transactions and 1.347 trillion. You see what I'm saying? Should be worth 10%.
Yeah, because let's sort of go to the crypto fair value ID, right? Because you sort of launched it, and I think it's a very great idea. I'm a big fan of it. I think the coins that you sort of highlight, especially Digibyte, Decred, Monero, Zcash. I mean, these are all favorite coins of mine. I hold them. I actually also started holding Near after our last show.
Near is $1 trillion coin,
Yeah. So, but you sort of put those valuations. I think you put Digibyte near $4 a coin, and I think Dash. What was it? 5,000.
5,000. And Stack is about 3,900, and Monero is about 3,000.
3,000. Yeah. So I like those numbers. I really like them a lot.
And coins about 3,000. Yeah.
So because for the people who are listening here, right? We got a very wide and diverse community. Of course, a lot of Bitcoiners, but also a lot of altcoiners. But can you sort of break down for the people who hear this for the first time and they think like $5,000 for Dash, right? Can you break down sort of the crypto fair value metric, how it works, and how you come to these numbers?
Sure. So if you want to drive some traffic to your side of things, while I'm talking here, if you go to X and go to @DigitalGoldTalk, And in your audience, if you just want to go there and click on the top, it's Digital Gold Talk at Digital Gold Talk. Then you can follow along with me because I know it by rote because I wrote it.
Yeah.
Right. But if you want to follow along with me at home, and if you want to share that in your feed, then people can just click on it right there. But it essentially came down to what I just told you. When we're trying, let's back up just a second. Let's think about how did we get to, yep, that's it. That's it right there. Wonderful. You see that we set, but before we go there, let me just ask you, if you're looking at a car, you're going to buy a car, you're going to go and you're going to look at the make, the model, the year, the miles, right? If you're looking at land, you're going to buy a piece of property next to me down in Naples on the beach. Okay? $20 million for a little postage stamp. And you say, well, that can't be. Well, no. Look at the properties next to it. They sold for $20 million. Okay. So comps in the marketplace. If you're looking at a house and it's 500,000, but this one is 50,000 and this one is 5 million. Well, what's the difference? Well, that's just what that house or that type house or that house sells for when you compare it to other houses like that. If I was going to give you a Picasso, you'd say what period, what medium, you'd ask a few things, and then you'd go look at Sotheby's and Christie's and that and see what they sold for recently in the last auctions. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I'm with you.
Tell me one thing that you would that doesn't do that. Like if I'm going to sell a pencil eraser and I tell you this pencil eraser is worth $100,000, you'd laugh at me, right?
Yeah.
But let's pretend the pencil eraser is Bitcoin. If I tell you that $100,000 is the right price for Bitcoin, you'd say, nah, maybe, or whatever. But I'd say, wait a minute, $1/10 of $1 trillion poured into Bitcoin at that value. Now, if I had an eraser, a pencil eraser, and I sold $100 billion worth of them at 100 grand, you might start questioning your own sanity. Because how could it be? But it must be, right?
Yeah. So what? Okay.
So what I'm saying is, so we all have to first agree on a benchmark. First we have to agree. First we have to agree there are comparisons in the marketplace on everything. If you're going to buy stocks, if you're going to buy a car, anything, literally. So understand that in 1949, Benjamin Graham wrote The Intelligent Investor. Great book.
Yep.
Prior to that, equities traded exactly like crypto, all FOMO and FUD. 35% swings were common. 95% crash in 29. Yeah. Now it takes almost 14 years to come back to the price that it was before 1929. Benjamin Graham in 49 writes The Intelligent Investor and says, we can't just trade on FOMO and FUD anymore. We have to have reasonable standards and expectations. And so how are we going to get people in the market to get into equities? He looks at the 10-year Treasury bond, very powerful in 1947 after the war, short-term, tax-free, very safe. Anybody will invest in that, and they're doing that instead of equities. So how do you get people to go to equities? So he comes up with this formula and says, what if for 10 years, that same period as the bond, you collected all the earnings of a company? And if you collected there, nice. Yeah, great book. Go get that one. I'm the Benjamin Graham of crypto. That's how I consider myself, right? Because what he did was he said, let's imagine that you got all 10 years of earnings for General Electric. He didn't say GE, but let's just say one. Okay. If that adds up to more than what you would have gotten as a return on the treasury, that's probably a better investment. So P, price of the stock, divided by E, the earnings per share, is equal to growth. So if $20 is the price of the stock divided by $1 in earnings per share, and it's 20 divided by 1 is 20. If it's growing at 20%, it's fair. If it's growing at 40 times next year, it's half price. And if it's growing at less than 20, it probably is worth less than where it's trading. We don't have anything like that for crypto, but that literally made Warren Buffett worth 100 billion. Peter Lynch went up on Wall Street beating the street. Warren Buffett studied under Graham, Berkshire Hathaway, of course. Okay. So what do we have for crypto that can be a benchmark like that 10-year treasury that we can weigh against? Nothing, right? So we had to create something. So AI and I worked on this, Grok AI and I worked on this for about 6 months. And I just poured myself into it from January of 24 all the way until about June, actually about May and June. And then I took it to the most brilliant scientist, Omied, over at the Litecoin Foundation. And I said, you guys are worth $3,000 a coin. And he challenged my methods, he challenged my results, and then ultimately agreed that I was correct. And then I went and showed it to Digibyte and to Dash and to Bell's Coin and to Zcash and to Bitcoin. Did I say Bitcoin Cash already? And to now Monero and to Multiverse X and to Near and to Internet Computer. And like, I just keep showing it to the scientists behind these coins, these core groups. No one can prove me wrong. So maybe you in the audience can prove me wrong. Let's go back to that page, if you would.
Yep. You mean the one at the top, right?
The one at the top of Digital Gold Talk.
Yes, here we go.
Okay, so what we're saying here, and you guys follow along, I don't need to see it because I wrote it. What we're saying here is that what we used as that benchmark, like the treasury, was Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin is where all mainstream media, sailors saying there is no second coin, everything else is a shit coin, blah, 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 blah. We all know it's not true, but that's what has been the narrative. And as a result, the baby boomers and Gen Xers, who I, lovingly call Boom Xers, these people follow mainstream media still, unfortunately, and their stockbrokers' advice, and they're only going into Bitcoin. Okay, fine. Then let's not think of it as Bitcoin. Let's think of Bitcoin as simply the general purpose tool as a benchmark that even Bitcoin will have to judge against later. So we look at what's under it and we say that 70% of the weight, if you'd scroll back up, please, 70% of the weight we put in adoption. Why do we put it in adoption? Because if you're not going to be tribe.netted or Friendstered or MySpaced or Facebooked, and now it's X, you have to evolve. You have to continue to grow adoption. And if your adoption slips or fails, then you're gone. So you don't have transactions and transaction value and developer ecosystem. And you have miners, none of it, stakers, none of it, if you don't have adoption. So adoption, we weight 70%. And remember that they had 80 million users. So everything in the future then is going to have to compare itself to Bitcoin? No. Bitcoin and everything else is going to have to compare itself to 80 million users. You want to reach parity to Bitcoin? You need 80 million users or at least the weighted equivalent. Next, annual transactions and transaction value. Now, why don't we say transaction speed, transactions per second, value per transaction? Because neither of those matter. They don't matter. If you're going to try and be money rather than a barterable thing like digital gold of any kind, whether it be Litecoin or Bell's Coin or Dogecoin or Bitcoin, if you're going to be this stored value, why do you care how fast it transacts? I'm going to hold it for 10 years. What does it matter if it takes 10 minutes? So transaction does not matter. But if I'm going to be Dash or Digibyte, right, or Zach or XMR, now I am money. And I need a fast transaction speed. Now it matters, but overall valuing things other than in their categories, in their lanes, doesn't matter. Anybody that says that it does is wrong. And as far as the total transaction value, like transaction size, like Fidelity Magellan tracks in their 3 reports on Litecoin, Ripple, and Bitcoin, they're all trash. What does that matter? It doesn't matter how much the transaction value is in each one. What we want to know is how many transactions were there, because that shows the overall health of the ecosystem. And we want to know what was the transaction volume. We want to know how many transactions were there. Again, the health of the ecosystem. We weight each of these 10, and like I say, 13.49 trillion for Bitcoin, 6.09 billion for total volume. Next is developer ecosystem. Now, I've had conversations with Shielded Mark, shout out genius, over there at Zach. And he pointed out that maybe we should break apart the developers, because we do look at core versus application. And there were 905 and we weight them 5%, just like transactions and value. But maybe he said it's more important their core. And I was thinking, yeah, maybe we should weight that more, but because I'm rewriting the book as a result of inputs from DB Crypto with a Zero and Joel on adoption and other things. But I say no on this because the more I think about it, you really want those application developers. You know, Ethereum's worth 3.6 trillion in June because it has like 10,000 developers developing on top of it, maybe more than that. I haven't looked at Ethereum at all. You know, it's really important. And so developer ecosystems, you have to have the core team that's creating and a utility and supporting and securing, but you need the ancillary that's growing the overall application market. And finally, we have network power score, which is to say, how do you weight something like Bitcoin, which has hash rate, against proof of stake like Blackcoin, or someone that's a combination of both like Dash, or a delegated proof of stake like Cardano, which we love. I love Charles Hoskinson. And so just genius. I love geniuses. And so we look at what would it take to attack it. Now, I was wrong on 21. It's 18.2 billion to attack it for 1 minute if you could, but you can't. Okay, well then in staking, it would be, it takes 18.2 billion in staking. Or if it's Digibyte, which has 5 types of proof of work, you've got a 51%, all of them at the same time. Or if it's Dash that has proof of work plus different types of proof of stake, all the same. But now we've leveled it. It doesn't matter if you've got hash rate or proof of stake or combo. It doesn't matter. What does it take to take over your network if you could, but you can't for 1 minute? Final thing, if you look, is inflation. It's literally the last thing, but it's important. And since this is the benchmark, as Bitcoin continues to go down, it will have a plus against this. But if you have inflation that's higher than this, it's a negative against your value. And then, of course, just like any equity, we'd look at it over time. So again, this is why I say for Bitcoin to go up, that's great. I want it to go up. Let it go up, though, based on these fair metrics that everyone else has to compare to, not just because Michael Saylor's investing some more money in it and made a post. Who cares?
Agreed. I mean, you want a free market, fair market. And so this gives you a group, you know, the people who are watching gives you a good idea what you're talking about and how you're measuring it. And I think it's important to lay down a benchmark. And I think, you know, judging from how you sort of put it together, it makes sense, right? So, so let's say, okay, this is true, and then how do you get those numbers from like Monero and Zcash? I mean, you basically explained it.
I don't have their numbers in front of me, but Monero must have a couple million users, holders of Monero in the world, right? And I think that Litecoin had like, I don't have the numbers in front of me for a while now, but I think it's like 9 million. And you know, so let's just take Litecoin.
Yep.
Let's say I'm right that and that it has, let's just say it has 8 million users. I'm just making up a number now. I'm making up a number, right? Okay. But let's say that Litecoin, which we do like, I had issues with some people at the foundation. They're over behind us. No more drama. I like Litecoin. It was the first coin that I went to. It's the first coin after Bitcoin. It is just like Bitcoin. If you're going to compare two coins, let's face it, almost every coin out there except Internet Computer, Near, and Multiverse X and Monero, I didn't know that, but now I do, were a fork of Bitcoin. And what every one of these coins, like Litecoin, does is it's a decentralized wallet, which is not really a wallet. It's a graphic user interface looking in at ones and zeros, you know, essentially a ledger, but it shares a ledger. And there's something called a coin, which doesn't really exist for coins, but it gave us a visual, right? Okay. So you've got this, right? So you've got this Qt wallet you download for Bitcoin. Well, you download it for Litecoin too. They've got the same Qt wallet, same Bitcoin wallet, right? Okay. Theirs is faster and less expensive, but we're not taking that into account right now. We're just taking into account, what do all these have in common? Bram Cohen's brilliant, genius, and we're interviewing Bram on the 23rd, I think, on a Sunday with the senators. But Bram invented something called BitTorrent. Are you familiar with it?
BitTorrent, right? Yeah.
You ever use it?
No.
No. Emule, LimeWire, no. Nova, Supernova, Pirate Bay. Download.com.
Pirate Bay. Yeah, that's also BitTorrent. Yeah, a friend of mine, he ran. I should probably not say that. I know.
Do you remember Kazaa? I think Kazaa was
yeah.
But they white-hatted their people with Skype and then sold that for billions. Very smart. but that was all based on this idea that you could download a media player, and as long as you were allowing people to take little bits off of yours, then you could fill your pipe with bits from everywhere, a torrent of bits, to stream a live piece of media. Okay. That was the precursor in my mind to Bitcoin, because that had around, I believe, like 167 million total users globally, which is amazing. The first truly decentralized computer system. Well, so that's what Bitcoin and Litecoin, for instance, have exactly in common. They both have these wallets that have coins, and these wallets are ledgers. You are the bank. You can self-custody. You're getting away from financial institutions. You can send it to each other, right?
I wish this part people would take more serious, but yeah.
But it's the same thing, right?
It's the same thing.
Now you could say, well, who's faster and who's cheaper? And now we could drill down. But if we're just looking at 35,000 feet, what do they all have in common?
Mm-hmm.
Even Multiverse X, ICP, Monero, and Near do this feature. That's what they are at their very core, is they have coins and wallets and allow them to send back and forth at its base. I believe those are called coins, and I believe tokens are anything built on top of a real blockchain, but they don't have their own blockchain. They rely on another. Those are tokens. Yeah. Everything else is a coin. Okay, if you're L1, right? Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, so if we all agree that Litecoin and Bitcoin are the same thing essentially, and let's say that Litecoin had 8 million users. Let's say, and I'm making up numbers, but you asked, how do I come up with the numbers? I'm telling you. Okay, so let's say that I use AI to go out and I do which I'll explain more in my book, or I can answer questions. I do a much deeper dive on all these things than just saying, Google, how many users does Monero have, or Litecoin? And it comes back with an answer, and I trust Google, and I plug it in. No.
Yeah, because can I interrupt you for 1 second? Because you have a couple of books out there, right? I think The Intelligent Crypto Investor, and I think 1 or 2 others.
I pulled those off the shelf. I'm renaming The Intelligent Crypto Investor because some other asshole came along, hasn't even published his book, won't be here till January, but he got a big publishing house and everything, and he's written other books. So Amazon throws his Intelligent Crypto Investor up ahead of mine, which was actually live. Okay. And so I said, fuck it. And it's going to be Crypto Fair Value.
Okay, well, but it's an even better name, right? Yeah, because it sort of fits what you're talking about. So
it makes sense. Okay, but I wanted to throw that comparison of the intelligent investor, the intelligent crypto investor, because it's literally doing the same thing: set a benchmark, use formulas and metrics, period, inputs. But that's okay. Whatever. God pushed me this way, and I trust God.
One more thing: they can buy it on your website.
No, the books, plural, there will be 3 different books that are coming up. One is sort of a history of the whole thing, through, Hashcash and, B-Money and, Linden Dollars and all of these things that led to Bitcoin, and Perfect Money, which is to say, why is it that every crypto that's out there today is actually layer 1s are actually barterable commodities, but they're not perfect money. Perfect money requires a stable value, and a stable value, they say, oh, but gold. No, gold was $20 roughly in value, equivalent, for 214 years only. And so gold would not be a medium of exchange today because it's changing literally as you go. So we have to understand that Bitcoin was the first really great barterable commodity. That was its killer app. Okay, so the books that are going to be coming out, we'll talk about meme coins, because I talked to Charles Hoskinson, and I talked just briefly in a space, we want to interview him, with Bram Cohen the other day, and he said, well, what about midnight? And I was like, yeah, and dust, which you should have called dusk, right? Because that would have made more sense, right? But midnight, and I was like, well, Charles, if I think about it, midnight will have adoption, midnight will have transactions, midnight will have transaction of volume and value, rather. It'll have a developer ecosystem around it. It'll have inflation. And the only thing it's missing is network power score. But if I applied the tokens network power score to the underlying blockchain, which is Cardano, I could do it. And he's like, let's talk. And I was like, I got to write another book. So that'll be my next book. Or the current book. But it'll be out. I keep saying next week. It'll be a month. It's just I'm so busy on podcasts and that I just haven't taken time to rewrite it, but it'll be called Crypto Fair Value. and it'll be available everywhere.
And okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the podcasting. You also have a lot of senators on your podcast, which is very interesting. A lot of OGs also within the crypto field. So, so first, maybe let's talk a little bit about your connection with the senators, because I find that very fascinating. Because that also means that you probably have some, insight in regulation and that kind of thing.
No, we'll be writing all the policy going forward.
Even better.
Foundation is a self-regulating organization that's going to be working with the state legislatures and the treasurers in all 55 states and territories. And we'll be doing a tour literally week by week, state by state, me and a guy named Noah, and we're going to film it in 4K and make a Netflix special out of it. Or one of them, Voodoo, somebody will pick it up. Mm-hmm. And then we'll also be podcasting live from the road. And we'll be meeting with our friends in the House and Senate, and we'll be describing to them what is crypto, why does it have any value, what is that value? So now you can write policy about it, right? Mm-hmm. And because right now they're really doing it just for votes and campaign contributions, but understand clearly that when a state treasurer, if they don't have a mandate in law that they have to buy a certain percentage of the treasury has to go into crypto, then they will never do it. Because let's say Julie Ellsworth, my friend here in Idaho, she manages 11 billion for the state. Let's say she was just going to put 110 million, 1% of the budget in there. And she bought Bitcoin at 120. And now all of a sudden Bitcoin is at retesting 82, let's say, because that's where it's going to retest before it bounces again, right? And so head and shoulders thing, it's just charting. But like when it does, let's say there was an election right then, and they've now lost like tens of millions of dollars of the state's money betting on Bitcoin at the wrong time. She's not going to win the next election, because if I was her opponent, I'd club her with it. And I would say, how dare she? She is willing to put at risk the taxpayers' money on something so speculative. I would never do that, right?
Yeah.
Now she works with 22 other state treasurers who in total control over 50% of all state treasury wealth. None of them are going to do it. Zero. So we're going to go on a state tour and we're going to teach them all. And I've done this capital tour before back in 20.
And what because you are sort of familiar with the territory, I think you sort of mentioned
I was the most winning campaign.
I wanted to go there, but you beat me to it. But so tell me a little bit more about that. But before you do that, like, what is the reaction that you now get with senators when you tell your story? Because you already told it to some of them.
Arizona Senator Mark Fincham, and who's passed crypto legislation, just didn't get signed by the governor, and he's passed species currency law that said no taxes when you're buying and selling gold and silver because it's actually money. And that passed and was signed into law by Ducey before this current hack that stole the election in 22 as Secretary of State. She's just evil, Marxist. She'll be gone. She should go to prison, but they never do. But Mark Fincham, he should have had his last crypto laws passed. They didn't. He's on my regular podcast. He is a founding father of Digital Gold Foundation. Marv Hagedorn, Idaho senator, he is a founding father of the Digital Gold Foundation, as is Sal Esquivel, senator from Oregon, Bill Ream, senator from New Mexico, and Lee Perry, House rep, former from they're always House reps, I guess, forever for the rest of their life, from Utah. Yeah, there he is. Yep. Nice. And he hosts the podcast with me after this show, and so does Marv Hagedorn. Yep.
So for the people who are watching, follow Digital Gold Talks. I mean, you are a very interesting character, and I love your podcast. I also like the energy and the drive that you bring to the podcast. You're very sharp, and you're very good verbally. But you also ask the right questions, and you promote the right coins, in my opinion. So for the people who are listening, go follow Digital Gold Talks. Give them likes, give them follows, and start spreading the news. So what are you going to talk about?
Do you know Chisenbach?
Huh?
Do you know Chisenbach?
Chisenbach.
Yeah. So I was going to say, there are now 17 coins. And And I thought, wow, that's a lot of work. And my brain went back to when I was 7 years old and learned Chisenbach. And I was like, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17. That's Chisenbach. So you can count up to 100 on your fingers. And you can add and everything else. I learned how to multiply with just 2 fingers up to 100. Yeah. It's crazy.
Nice.
So 17 coins that we're going to be covering total. There are 2 that are questionable right now, just because after we're talking with Near, it seems that both of theirs are obsolete. But then I started thinking, well, maybe we can use AI to make theirs better, because they already have these communities and they're OG. Maybe we can just make them better. So I think we'll make them better. Probably.
Oh, and okay. And you also have this insight with Zcash, right? Because Zcash is, of course, one of the coins that you're, talking about.
I don't have any insight other than having really fun people come on my podcast.
No, you don't have to tell anything that's sort of off the records, of course. But
no. I mean, I literally don't know anything.
Oh, okay,
like, I bring you guys on, and we hang out in my living room, and you
but
guys, and then they leave, and I learn from them when they're in my living room. That's all.
Yeah. But you talk to Near Intent. We actually had them on the show previously.
I talked to JP Dog. Shout out.
Yeah. So what happened with Near Intent and Zcash? Can you sort of highlight what?
Well, okay, but you're skipping around. You're missing a few things. So guys out there in the audience, the reason that I know all these House members and senators, and they're literally my friends, and I've known them, most all of them, for like 16 years, okay? And that's 155 of them, is that I ran 350 elections and re-elections for them, and I did it in 2010 through 14. And I did it using an app that my father and I had created in 2008 and 9 that allowed people to communicate with their telephones, so that I could be on the floor of the Senate and snap a photo of the scoreboard, the people voting, or, it's not called the scoreboard. I call it scoreboard. Or just like, here I am on the House and Senate floor, and do a selfie and then send it out saying, I'm doing your work. This is what we're doing. And that was unheard of in 2010. Unheard of. And then what would you use to do it? But I gave him my app called Chumley, CHUMLY, friendly, chumley.com. I since gave that away to a House rep that's now a senator in Colorado, and he drove it into the ground because he's an idiot. Yeah, you, Ray. And you never paid me for Chumley, you piece of shit. $10,000 you said you'd pay me. You are a scumbag. But yeah, Ray Scott. And that's so politics, right? Yeah, no, that's just dirty bullshit, because I like a brother and he stabbed me in the back, you crook. Anyway, Senator Ray Scott. But yeah, I had this thing called Chumley, and Chumley allowed people to take a photo, take a video, make just a text post, do whatever, selfies or anything, and then from their phone, send it to Facebook, LinkedIn, WordPress, Twitter, Blogspot, Tumblr, like 8 different top sites. But by doing that, you would instantly take over the top 10 search results at Google, because of course you'd have your own .com as well, and maybe a politics page. So just like that, wham, you got the top 10. And so what I'd do is I'd come in their office, like Scott Bedke was House, he was assistant majority leader, and then he became speaker. Now he's lieutenant governor, he'll be governor next, right? But I come in his office and I essentially like, hey, Scott, I own scottbedke.com, and I own twitter.com/Scott Bedke, and I own linkedin.com/IN/Scott Bedke, and I own, and he's like, what are you doing? What's going on? I was like, well, I'm giving them to you. Because if I was your opponent, I would crush you, and nobody would ever see you. Because when you Google search, I would own your result legally. And I would tell them not to vote for you. And I'd tell them to vote for me instead. And so I'd get all your traffic. And he's like, what? Yeah, but I saved you. Here. Now let me show you how to broadcast to all of them at once from your phone, or email, or sitting down at the site. And oh, by the way, I can create a website for you at scottbedke.com that literally will pick up all of your posts and give you a live feed there in real time dynamically. And so anybody that did that, and then I taught them how to communicate with their constituents in a meaningful way. Like, if all you're going to do is come out during election season, like every other asshole, and just like literally throw a bunch of radio, television, and newspaper ads and direct mail you're not going to win. You're just battling who has the biggest yard sign or the biggest billboard signs, right? But what you need those still, but what you need is all year long, take them with you into the Capitol. And when you're not in the Capitol, Scott Bedke, take them out on your ranch and drive them around when you're herding up.
Personal, right?
Yeah, or when we're literally branding cattle or whatever you're doing. involve them in your life and make them feel like they know you, Scott Bedke. And furthermore, sit down at the end of every day and just go through and like people's replies to your posts and call them by name. And you'll see that Facebook tells you it's their anniversary or birthday. Say, hey, Jim and Sarah, happy anniversary. Call them by name. You know, hey, Bill, happy birthday, brother. You know, because now you got their vote and you've got their vote for the rest of their lives. And that's it. And when you go into the ballot box, understand that it is like 80% name recognition. That's it. And if you go in there, and it's probably more than that, and if you go in there and they already know your name and they think you like them, because you probably should, they're your constituent, they're voting for you, better like them, and they know that you like them because you keep telling them that, who are they voting for? The guy that's throwing radio ads up? So in that vein, we took out a 32-year incumbent in Mississippi with a first-time candidate, Melanie Sojourner. Senator Kelly Ward, who went on to run for U.S. Senate and was the RNC or the state chair for a while, Arizona Republican chair, she won her election by less than 1,000 votes. You bet she did. And she contacted me afterwards, like, you won this election. And I was like, oh, I know that. So why are they my friends? A lot of them owe their careers to me. And then I should stay in office and rise to Congress or Senate or governor.
Have you ever considered doing something in politics yourself? Or do you think like, oh my God?
I ran for office in Kansas because they were filling a hole. And the Huffington Post beat me over the head with it. And it was so crazy. But like the state legislature was supposed to redistrict and set the boundaries, and they pushed it off. So it went to a judge, and the judge, to teach them a lesson on Friday at like noon, he said, any candidate, here's the new districts. And he literally, like, if your district was right here, he drew it around. So now you're in this district. He literally screwed with people, just redrew them. So you're now in a totally different district over here. And they had until Monday at 6 p.m. to go in and register in the state capital of Tacoma or whatever it was, or they're not in the race. Just as a big to all of these people for not doing this. And so they needed to fill holes. They didn't have candidates for every. So they said, John, would you run for state rep in this district? And I was like, of course. And I'll just drop out later. And I did. And Huffington Post was like, he doesn't live there. I ran for state rep in Idaho, but then I moved. And so I wasn't in the district anymore. I didn't finish that race. And I ran for a House rep over in Oregon once, just because I just wanted to see what it was like. And I ended up meeting a bunch of people. And, you know.
And what was it like?
It's really different. People immediately treat you like a celebrity, which is really stupid. Like, seriously, like, you want to be treated like a celebrity for a few months? Run for state office, walk around and tell people that you want to represent them as their senator or House rep. And they will be like, oh, a celebrity. And they treat you, which is why none of these people want to leave office, because once they're in office, they literally are celebrities, right? And everyone wants them on the news and everything. So
gives you a kick. Somebody asked in the audience, what is your take on the Clarity Act? I mean, sort of like in between, because it's an important act, of course.
I don't know. Here's what I think. And I'll talk about Genius Act first. Genius Act was a way for us to offload the treasuries that nobody else in the world wants, since we don't have quantitative easing and the Fed buying up their own shit anymore, essentially, right? And so it's brilliant and it's genius in the sense that they did get to offload their debt to stable coins that are all worth $1. And now they know that, they literally just can put out stable coins, even if they don't trade. They were bought. All those treasuries were purchased. So that was genius because nobody else was buying them, not China. As far as the Clarity Act, I don't know that there's much clarity needed. Frankly, remember that these people work for us. They're our employees, first of all. Right? So they're not
representatives.
Not celebrities. They might well be they're cleaning up shit, right? Okay, so they're really just our cleaners. Okay, they're just our employees. And all of those bureaucrats that are there in between elections, the state workers, you guys are employees too. I know you guys forget that. You don't run us, we run you. Okay, we can eliminate you guys out of office simply by voting out. Okay, we can change you state workers by putting in new administrations that fire you. Okay, get rid of you, turn you over, just like happened in this administration. Clean out the dirt, the slop, the rot. But the fact is, they think that they somehow think they control us. There is nothing in the Constitution that says we cannot create our own money. There's nothing in there that says, and in fact, if you like Austrian economics, then you would, okay, then you would have to agree then that competing currencies is a good thing. It's a great thing. Right. So the Federal Reserve, which isn't even federal, it's as federal as Federal Express. Why does it ever been audited ever? Why does it get to have the monopoly on our money? Baron Rothschild, who is the real owner, said once something like, let me control the printing presses of the government's money and I care not who is elected.
Yeah, you got some famous quotes there. Yeah, Kissinger also has a nice one. There's if you control the money, you control the world.
Yeah, that's right. And so, look, the bottom line is that there should be competing currencies. The other thing is they say that you can't invest in a security because you might lose your money. But I can take it down to Vegas right now and bet it all on the spin of a wheel, roll of a die, or flip of a card. And that's okay. But God forbid I invest in a startup. I might lose my money. Literally is stacked against you when you walk in the casino. If you stay long enough, guaranteed you will lose all of it. Guaranteed. At least with a startup, I might make money.
Yeah, no, and to be honest, right, we're also losing money without losing money, right? Our purchasing power is dropping off a cliff.
Dropping off a cliff, and so that's what one of my books is about: is how do we preserve purchasing power in a currency? But yeah, so yeah, it's this idea, and I think the idea that meme coins are okay, but you still can't invest in a security because that's risky. Literally, meme coins to me are you going to the corner gas station and buying lottery tickets. So what they've really done is they've legalized the ability for me to run a lottery, or just play in the lottery. And that's totally, totally legit. But God forbid you invest in a startup. You might lose your money. Do you see how crazily asinine that is?
Yeah. Now I fully agree with you. I mean, I do understand there's a role for regulation, but I think the regulatory apparatus has been captured and is being used and weaponized against us.
Do you know about FINRA?
What about it?
FINRA is a self-regulating organization made up of the owners of the largest exchanges, Intercontinental Exchange.
Oh, yeah.
FTSE, DAX, okay, CAC 20, whatever. Okay, if you have a group that owns all the on-ramps and off-ramps to equities, and they manage themselves, and they find themselves,
what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? So they do have to report to the SEC and CFTC if that was to apply. So we've created a self-regulating organization because anyone can, and we will report to the bodies that need to be reported to, whether it be CFTC or SEC. But in most cases, we'll probably say that we don't have to because it's not written into law. Are you aware of Chevron being overturned by the Supreme Court and what that meant?
I've heard about it, but it's
so Chevron essentially when it went in said that bureaucrats and state agencies like USAID kind of Fed agencies can determine what the law means. They can interpret the law.
Oh, is it a living constitution?
Chevron said no, you cannot. And just like that, they dropped Ripple, they dropped MetaMask, they dropped all of these. Why? Because they were interpreting law. But also, like here as farmers, there were a group that were being hassled for hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawyer fees and fines and everything by the EPA over here because they were interpreting the law. And the moment Chevron passed, they were gone. It was over. So thank God for that. So right now, I think with Chevron in place, with a pro-crypto administration in place, for them about to put out, by the way, $2,000 stimulus checks when in 2020, we only had 1,400 and we saw the market race to 21 because everyone had this.
They now put out $2,000 checks, right?
That's going to happen. So that's why I say they're pulling back to 82,000 just before stimulus checks are released.
Yeah. They're
doing that on purpose so the big black rocks can come into the market and buy it up cheap from the paper hand suckers. And then they're going to go boom, 165. Yeah.
So okay. So going back to the market a little bit. So what is your expectation? You already said 82, so we'll drop to 82, around, right? More or less.
82. Yeah. I mean, I think probably the mark they show on CoinMarketCap. No one should use that. It's Masari.io if you want legit numbers. CoinMarketCap is just absolute lies and thievery. But if you go down and you look on their chart, it'll be here at 82, when in fact intraday it'll probably go to 77.9 or somewhere, 78.2, somewhere in there. And this is just me reading charts on FOMO and FUD, you know.
Yeah, there's more people who sort of share your conviction, but then then it bounces back, in your opinion. So
sure. Bitcoin will hit a new high.
Do you think it will be short and violent, or do you think it will long and drawn out? You know, what is your take there?
It's always fast. When we have that crash, it'll just be it'll be drawn out as we go down, and it has been, and it's making, and because you can't. The flash crash didn't cause fear. People went right back in the market. Yeah. It wasn't long enough. But when you make people suffer, I think the fear and greed index is at 23 or 25 or something right now. And the worst that it was in March of 2020, right before the rally. And, you know, Baron Rothschild did say something else too, which is buy when there's blood in the streets.
Blood in the street. Yep.
Well, they are causing blood. They are causing carnage.
You should know my friends. Now, not all of my friends, but you know, a majority of my friends are in all kinds of states. Like, you know, and it's what's also funny is like by doing this, they discredit people like myself and like yourself, right? Because you know, we have been saying like, okay, we're going to X amount, or at least somewhere above 120. Let's say, I don't know, 130 or 140 or 150 or whatever target you set.
Yeah, but do you know that shouldn't matter to us at all, though? We have to decouple from Bitcoin. What I'd like to say instead is that I believe that in this next bull push, we can get about $6 trillion in value if we can get Ethereum up to its 3.6 trillion. If we can get Solana up to its 1.3 trillion. If we can get NEAR up to its trillion. Right there, I just added 3 trillion to the market cap. Well, that's more than Bitcoin. So why do we care about Bitcoin? Just like that, it's marginalized. You have to understand, God loved Bitcoin, but we cannot go on with everything being about Bitcoin and grow this market to its $10 trillion real value.
Oh, no, I mean, that's also what we're about, right? I mean, we're in that sense agnostic, right? So I do like a lot of these other projects, and we do promote them also on our podcast. Right. But yeah, of course we want to grow the market, and we want to grow utility and this coin distribution, and make people more aware of other projects out there, and that they can invest in, and that they're solid projects with.
Okay, so back to Litecoin then, because I didn't finish that, right? So let's say
we're going all over the place.
Let's say Litecoin has 8 million users compared to Bitcoin's 80. Yeah. Then why isn't it worth $200 billion, 1/10 of Bitcoin's value? Mm-hmm. And if it's growing faster than Bitcoin, which it is, then, and it's got MWeb and privacy and all these things, well, MWeb privacy, I should say, and all these things. If that's the case, then why isn't, if it's growing faster, if it was an equity, we would think this is going to be the best bet. You have to understand that you have a bell-shaped curve to adoption, which is you have the idea, but you have to cross a chasm, as Jeffrey Moore said in his book, Crossing the Chasm. And you have to get, and that's like 30 years ago. And to cross this chasm, you need these early innovators, but you also need someone with a megaphone. In the old days, it was like Walt Mossberger with the Wall Street Journal. And you need them to say something so that these early innovators will start talking about it, so the early adopters will start looking at the innovators and go, oh, I want that too. And then you get into the early majority and then majority. And then after the majority, you start falling off, and it's the late majority. And then you get the stalwarts. Bitcoin is right about here. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to say it's way down here and it's so early, but let's face it, like the guy at Zek said, Shielded Mark, if you were to get a completely private coin that had a fraction of the speed and expense of Bitcoin to operate, and then Bitcoin came along, why would you get it?
Yeah, but that's not how it went.
No. Answer the question. Why would you get it? It's an inferior coin. The answer is you wouldn't. The answer, you don't want to say it, but the answer is you wouldn't. If you had Digibyte came out first with 5 types of proof of work, no way to 51% attack it. It has instant transactions nearly at 15 seconds, and they're almost free. And then Bitcoin comes along with 10-minute blocks that are really expensive. You're saying you would switch? No, you wouldn't. And the only reason Bitcoin is this late in the adoption cycle to late majority is because it's about time for this bubble to crack open here on all the rest of the crypto that's holding back 10 trillion in real value and real innovation.
Okay. So your perspective here is actually that we're at the point where
Bitcoin's going to go like this now forever.
Yeah, no,
not,
okay.
Not this. Nah, it's too late in the adoption cycle. It's here, and now there are better products.
Okay, but
it won't go away. It won't go away because there's too much money in it.
Yeah, no, okay, but you think it will sort of wither off? And
no. It's the BlackRock coin. It'll be here forever. It's the BlackRock coin, right? They should rename it BLAR. It's the BlackRock coin. They own most of the miners, or enough influence on those miners. They could 51% attack themselves. 1.8% of Bitcoin wallets own 93% of all Bitcoin. It is not decentralized. It is centrally owned. It doesn't move. It's not perfect money. The white paper is a failure. However, as a store of value, as one type of digital gold, because they're all digital gold, all these, okay? They all have that same ability to store and transact. We agreed on that, okay? That's its base. That's why I compare Litecoin, because it's literally just like the same darn thing, but faster. So why wouldn't you go, oh, then if it has 10% as much traffic, it's worth 10% as much, which it is. Okay. That's it.
Yeah, okay, but in market terms, so you think Bitcoin is about to
I think it's going to keep rising, but it's not going to have these meteoric spikes. If it gets to $10 million a coin, it means we somehow reached 8 billion users. That's never going to happen. Will it reach 1 million? I think that's possible. But the thing it's up against now is better coins. Now, that said, for sovereign wealth funds and state treasuries and governments and someone that needs to trade tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars instantly, yeah, Bitcoin, go for it, right? But as far as like building the future internet, as far as building applications, as far as data storage, as far as data distribution, like UBIN that's coming out on top of ICP is going to blow away everything you've ever seen. I mean, there's just, everything has its lane, and there's enough room. With 500 million users, only 5 million or 1% actually use it for its God intended value as money. Everyone else is a speculator. Well, then first of all, let's move those 495 million people into using it self-custody. There's no such thing as safe sex. It doesn't exist. Okay. If it's not in your wallet, they're not your coins. Yep. Simple as that. Okay. And you don't know what they're doing with them. Okay. When we reach that, that's a different world. But guess what? Good news. There's 7.5 billion more people to bring into the ecosystem on top of it. So where are we going with this? Oh my goodness. There are lanes for my 17 coins. There are lanes. Every one of them is different. Everyone has their own specialty. Monero is different than Zcash. Zcash has off and on privacy. You can choose how much privacy you want. Monero, no, you don't. And Monero is built from the ground up and literally is scalable across CPUs, including phones, which nobody else can do, right? Zcash is Bitcoin based and it's different. It's totally different how it's set up, right? But they all have their lanes, and the good news is there's plenty to go around.
So but I actually agree with what you just said. But then you say basically you're saying that BlackRock is sort of controlling the price of Bitcoin.
No, I'm saying BlackRock is controlling the price of the entire crypto market through Bitcoin.
Okay.
It's worse than what you said.
Yeah, no, okay, true. Or at least, likely.
Well, no, let's not likely. Let's ask the question. If Bitcoin just went down to 50,000, what would the rest of the market do if Bitcoin just went down 50%?
If Bitcoin goes down a little bit, the rest of the market crashes.
And 100% BlackRock controls the entire crypto market simply by affecting Bitcoin. If they control that one, you just said it, not maybe.
Okay, but my question, my actual question is, if what you say is true and that these other lanes are there and there are going to be used, which I also think is the case, but the market at the moment is being controlled with the purpose of keeping it controlled. So how do you see those other coins break through that blockade? Like, I guess that's what your campaign is about, with
I know that too. That, of course, I'm going to help it. But you have less than 3,000 followers, and I do millions and millions of impressions of my work every week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why? Because I'm no longer the solo dancer. I don't even have to dance anymore, really. Like, people got it, they get it, they're spreading it. It's going to take wind. It just needs, a strong wind. It is gasoline. It's on fire. A strong wind, and this thing, everyone's going to know. Do you remember that BlackRock, which owns Citadel, which it was in on that entire fiasco with GameStop, they lost tens of billions of dollars against retailers like bricklayers, bartenders? We're kicking their ass? How? Because when we get together in numbers, we have the strength to turn the markets. And
true, but you also know how that ended, right? I mean,
you get 5 million people to agree that crypto fair value is common sense and FOMO and FUD is nonsense, no sense at all. Then we change the market, and it doesn't matter what any Bitcoin maxis or the mainstream media. Mainstream media has no pull except for the boom Xers, and we're going to get to them through all of our House and Senate members on our nationwide campaign. So,
well, I do agree that America has a huge influence, right? I mean, basically the most influence in the world when it comes to crypto. So if you can actually change the perspective.
This year I'll be flying out of, in my tour, I'll still be leaving, coming back. I'm going to Mexico City to talk Monero in, I believe, February.
Yeah.
So you got to ignite the whole world on fire. But pretty soon it'll be the norm, and people that trade on FOMO and FUD will be considered ridiculous.
So, okay, but and how do you see CBDCs fit into this story, right? Because you got the stable coins are basically CBDCs, but for example, I live in Europe. Europe is going full Monty CBDC style.
We're watching in horror, in absolute horror. The streets of the United States are watching the UK, Europe, and Canada and Europe be completely socialized, and they're going to control every aspect of your life with that smart.
Yeah, and then Australia and New Zealand are even worse, right? So
during COVID in Australia, if you refused to wear a mask or get vaccinated, they locked you in an internment camp.
Yeah, they actually had camps there, and then they locked down New Zealand for one case.
You couldn't even walk out of your shack onto the sidewalk, or the guards would put your ass back in your shack.
So, okay, but if that's the territory, right? If what we just sketched is the case, then basically the US is the only place where you can make a real difference in this regard, right? Because China is not going to do it. Currently. Europe is not going to do it.
You always have to worry that when you have one administration that will not talk down against, messenger ribonucleic acid being injected into all farm fruit, vegetable, pork, chickens, and everything, just trying their damnedest to get it into our bodies that didn't take it. I didn't take it. Okay. And so they were good. And I'm glad you didn't, brother. And so, like, they're so intent on this, and yet Trump's not speaking out about it. I thought he was my guy until Benjamin Netanyahu visited him and gave him a golden pager. I heard that that is to keep in the Oval Office to remind him who's in charge, I guess. Right? I'll blow your ass up. This is
it's a gift. It's a gift.
Oh no, like Syria, when those pagers all blew up, well, Trump got a golden pager. And just like that, they didn't release the Epstein list while Netanyahu was in town. And we gave billions more to Israel. And we kept on going with, and now we've given them the whole West Bank. They got it. Good thing. Whatever. I don't think so. I'm watching this shit happen, and it terrifies me, because Palantir is completely controlled by that same state and Peter Thiel. Okay. And those guys literally are going to be observing literally everything we do all the time, 100% of the time. Okay. During the Trump administration, maybe, and I'm now questioning even who's really in control now, because he promised the Epstein list on day one, for instance. But no, that's how literally, I believe, Mossad controls our entire Congress and everything through blackmail. That's my opinion. I'm right. I thank God to X.
You have a right to your opinion.
Okay, it's an opinion. Okay. But the fact is that as we're now rolling out Palantir and AI to watch us, what happens if they steal another election and the Marxist communists now control Palantir and all of that? So I don't think that it's a matter of if, but when the same atrocity that's happened, unfortunately, to Europe, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. I went to New Zealand. I didn't recognize it after 15, 20 years. It's a complete socialist madhouse there. Everyone's entitled and doesn't work. I mean, it's nuts. And so, you know, that's why we have to have Monero. We have to have Litecoin. We have to have Coin and Dogecoin.
Agree.
That will be the only way we can transact privately with freedom.
True. Yeah, but there's
to get around your own austere, the austere government's involvement in your personal life.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. But I do see like a big problem here. Like, how do we get from A to B? And I guess your fair value concept benchmark will help a lot, of course.
We have to decouple from Bitcoin. And the only way to do it is to give somebody a better way to measure. And we've given them that. And nobody can tell me it's wrong. I keep waiting. It's been 6 months now on the road, so to speak, introducing it to all these geniuses. I still haven't gotten to know.
I'm gonna do an announcement here on the show, like, you know, to all our listeners, right? The critics, there are probably some people listening here and who say like, nonsense. Go to the Digital Gold Talks. At the top of your account is fair value concept. We just went through it. Look at it and tell John here that he's wrong. All right.
Sure. Right? If you can prove me wrong, come on my podcast and I will broadcast my wrongness to everyone. Promise. You prove me wrong, I will.
Here's the challenge, the gauntlet.
Take me down in flames. You know, because the best way to, if I was to tell you that you're going to get to where you need to be, but you have to fail 173 times before you get there, wouldn't you be in a hurry to fail as quickly as you can and just as fast as you can to get there? Because you know you're going to get there. Same idea. I'm not afraid of failure because in failure comes a chance to get it even better, right? If I was wrong, where was I wrong? Can it be corrected? That's the scientific method, which we forgot during COVID. We forgot it during COVID.
Way before, sadly. But COVID was the worst. Yeah.
No, I mean, people Malone, who like invented, I think it was Malone that invented mRNA or discovered it. He was literally kicked off LinkedIn. 15,000 people he had built his career around could no longer communicate with him. Why?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Robert Malone is an interesting fellow also. Yeah. Now, it's very
I'm not worried about that future government. And you can't live your life in fear. You know, I'm not suicidal. I plan on living to 1,000. I plan on my brain and everything in here being downloaded to a flesh bot at some point and allow me superhuman powers and kung fu and all sorts of cool things. Now let's be 1,000. I am not suicidal. I think that there are people out there that what does the Chinese say? Other than may live in interesting times, which we are. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step.
True.
So we're never going to if we don't try. And I believe that there's an acceleration hockey stick effect happening. And I think right now we're right here. And as the fund releases and we put money into these coins and really word gets out, it's going to be, and that's it. Oops, I got a cat on my lap. This is Tommy.
Nice cat. I actually also have a cat. I got a black one. I'm starting to get a little bit gray, but his name is Crypto. So, you know, Showtime, not a maxi, right?
I love it. Well, no, that's good.
You got an orange one, so you could call it Bitcoiner. So, I hope sincerely that you're right, and we will, do our best to promote what you're doing, because I do think those coins are severely undervalued, and I also hope that there will be like massive adoption of those coins. And I also agree, like Samuel Beckett said, like, fail but fail better, right? I think that's a very big difference between the United States and Europe, because Europe is very much like nobody wants to fail.
Nobody wants to fail.
And they don't want to stick their head above the
I don't know that it's different. I'm kind of crazy. I just don't care if I fail. I don't care.
Well, yeah, it's also human nature, right? People don't want to look bad, and so there's a lot of psychological blockage, right? So many people want to look good in other people's eyes, but in Europe it has been
in God's eyes and your own, and nothing else matters.
That's true, and it's very liberating. I'm probably not as far along that road as you are, because I
We're
think
all on a journey, brother. It's all a journey.
yeah, life is a journey, and it's a very interesting journey. And I love having colorful characters like yourself on the show, somebody who challenges your perspective and makes you think anew. And I also know that you have a show after this one, and that you rushed from church to be here. Before I let you go, you also have the digital gold dollar, right?
It's not a dollar.
Okay, but can you tell us a little bit about that project, because it sort of ties into everything that you believe in, right? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So I kind of have this rule that, like, if somebody asks me a question, I have to answer it.
That's a good rule. I like it.
It's my rule. And so I will answer you, but you are making me answer you prematurely to when I wanted to announce it, but that's okay. I'll announce it here on your show. Okay. That's good. Okay. Yeah. So understand, guys, that I got into cryptocurrencies really, really early. And the reason I have OGs and that on my show and have pictures of me hanging out with people and this and that and all the rest that I post up is because I went from a venture capital space where I had realized I had done, okay, back up. I had done 12% of all of the 80 successful Kickstarter projects that had done 1 million out of 80,000 that had raised money, and millions that had failed of even raising money, but 80,000 made money. Only 80 made 1 million. Although Cartman and South Park had these at the time, like, oh, you just do anything, Kickstarter, and you raise millions. No, not really. Actually, there were only 80 at that point. And we're talking the 2012, 14 era, right in there maybe. And so this ability for me to help people raise money for their projects made me realize that there was actually a potentially patentable idea here. And so I sat and worked with a law firm for a couple of months. when we thought about this, I didn't end up patenting it, but we could have, because 85% of all funds fail. So even the big VC funds. And so that means that if you put $1 billion to work, 85% of those projects, you're going to be lucky to break even, or just you're going to lose 85%. But 15% of those projects you hope are going to more than double in that, but they're 10x, 15x, 20x even, but you're hoping that there'll be one in there that gets the 1000x. That makes up the whole funds, and they manage it for 10 years. And so I realized that we could probably reduce the 85% dramatically if we only first took projects that ran a Kickstarter, so to speak. Put it, and even Kickstarters, like put it out there amongst, I was going to go through KOLs in the tech space, like Robert Scoble and people I was working with. Because then if you took it out to 45 people that I had 20 million in reach. And so an idea could come into a venture firm and they could turn it over to these guys and ask the audience, would you buy this? And if the audience says yes, you start looking at building that. And then you look at the team, and then you look at all of these different, the finances, the pro forma or P&L if they're already moving, right? So I came into it with this space, and I looked up, and all these guys are doing ICOs, but they're not but they're really illegal coin offerings. They're illegal security offerings. If you take money from a group of people so a management team can make a profit for those people who put up the money, that is literally the definition of a security in the Howey test with the SEC. Securities and Exchange Commission, right? So I'm like, how in the world are they doing this? And so I make friends with a guy named Dustin Byington. And in 2017, by this point, I've studied, and I'm like, I know the difference. I'm sure I do. I get there to Consensus in New York in 2017, May, and I sit down with Jed McCaleb and Charles Hoskinson and all of these brilliant people that had like the top 25 coins, went out, had pizza, went T0. I whiteboarded how we could do this. And ultimately, they really didn't want to create a self-regulating organization, do all these things because they were making too much money. So I, instead of doing that with them, started working with their lawyers. And I worked with about 50 lawyers from 12 firms representing some multiple coins, but most of these coins. And I ended up with Roel Campos. Now understand that when I went to the first law firm, they taught me. And the second law firm we essentially aligned that I already knew that. May I learned a few new things. But as I went on and progressed, I clearly knew much more than everybody else because they were giving me everything they had, and I was just accumulating it in the hub. And so by the time I roll all the way around the wheel to the oldest, largest securities law firm in the United States, established in 1937, Hughes, Hubbard, and Reed, I get Roel Campos. And it's one of those nights where I pray to God for who should I talk to, and I do a search for something, and I find Roel, and I call him. I send him a text message. He calls back, and we set up a meeting. But then when I do it, same Google search, you can't find it. It's one of those moments, right? But Roel was the guy. And so I sat down with him and 6 lawyers in his firm, and I checkmated them all on why Bitcoin was a commodity and what was a security. And so I then wrote a document called Zen and the Art of Compliant Coin Maintenance. And I cited these laws, and I cited Hughes, Hubbard, and Reed. And Roel said, no, you're not. You can't do that. We have clients like the NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, members of Congress. We're not taking your side on this. Yeah, we did the work for you. But I was like, well, I own the work. I can put it out there. And he's like, you can, but we don't want you to, not with our name on it. And I was like, Roel, I thought we were friends, And I'm texting him this. I'm like, I thought we were friends, man. I guess we're not friends. And so he wrote back and said, no, listen, we're friends, but this is what I'm willing to do. I will rewrite it in my name. I will provide this over lunch to Jay Clayton, Commissioner or Chairman Clayton, over lunch. And that's the best I can do for you. And I was like, thank you. Perfect. And so he wrote it. He showed it to me. I approved. He gave it to Clayton. 20 days later, Bitcoin's called a commodity, 100% straight down exactly the line that I laid. Was it my work? I don't know. Seems like it. I don't know. Nobody called me and said thank you. But I believe I put in 10,000 hours of real work with these lawyers. Side note, and I always mention this because I deserve it. I deserve the props for this. Elon Musk got sued by SEC Chairman Clayton at 1 a.m. or 12:01 a.m., whatever, on a Friday, and sued Tesla, Elon Musk for each $2 billion.
Yeah.
He had to step down. You remember, chairman and CEO for forever from a U.S. company, right? You remember this? Okay. And all because he made a 420 pot joke that said he was going to take the company private for 420. And when he said I was joking and the stock fell, they pounced.
Yeah.
I call Roel Friday. He doesn't answer. I text him nothing. I call him Saturday, nothing. I text him nothing. I text him Sunday and say, I call him first. And then I text him again and say, Roel, should I be concerned that you're still alive or not? Like, where are you, man? Like, are you okay? And 20 seconds later, whatever, the phone rings and he's like, John, I'm working with a single client right now and he's taking all of my cycles. I really just don't have time right now. Is it important? And I said, is it Elon Musk? Right? And he's like, well, the news hasn't come out. It'll come out tomorrow. Don't tell anybody, but yes. And I said, okay, here's how you close the case right now. You tell them that they completely screwed up. Their history is going to be known as driving the Edison of America to China, Saudi Arabia, somewhere else. And there go the battery plants, and there go the car plants, and there goes all the technology, and there goes all of it. I don't know what'll happen with SpaceX, but they're going to be known for this because he's not going to step down as chairman or CEO. He's just going to close everything up and move somewhere else. So like, you guys literally will be known the rest of your lives for causing more loss in value to Tesla stockholders than he ever did. So you're literally going to go down in flames for this for the rest of your lives. You messed up, but here's your get out of jail free card. 20 million from Elon, 20 million from Tesla. So it looks like you got something. Chairman for 1 year, CEO, no way. The stock market will rebound. It'll look like you guys got the biggest, fastest settlement you ever did, and it's over. And 24 hours later, brother, that was the settlement. Okay. So sharp lawyers. And these lawyers and I figured out what was a security or not. So I then put out a coin, Bitcoin Latino, and Bitcoin Latino is worth $450 million a few months later. And I'm worth $45 million because I had 10% of the coins. Don't hate too much. You remember, Stoshi had 5 1/4. So, okay. And then all of a sudden it starts dumping. And I'm like, what's going on? So I start trying to buy it back up and it keeps dumping. And then I go in and I eviscerate the miners. What are you doing? And they're like, oh, no, it's your guys. And I'm like, what? And I look and it's my guys. It's my team members. And so I go in there because a wrapped coin on BitShares because Charles Hoskinson in 2013 was ahead of everybody in DeFi, literally everybody. And so I took my coins back. And they went raging, oh, he's a felon, he stole our coins. By the way, Rowell was with me through it all. All these senators on that page, they were all with me through that, right? But then they started attacking me and my wife and calling her by name and saying the most wretched things about her. And finally, my wife is like, we're done. Shut it down. And I shut it down and I wrote The Death of Crypto. It's on Medium out there, and you can read the whole story. So I do nothing for like 5 years. And then I see the 2020 election stolen. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is not okay. What are we going to do about this? They're going to CBDC us. They're going to destroy us. So I create a coin called Digital Gold, DGD. And I go over to L-Bank to get it listed on the exchange, and I pay them 350 grand. And it turns out L-Bank's just another big fraud. They're a Chinese company working out of Dubai where there's no extradition. And they have like 100,000 people, but they say they have like 4.7 million customers. And they say they do billions a day, but they do about 1 million maybe. Okay. And they probably steal your coins for all I know. Okay. But that's what happened. And so I come back with my tail between my legs again, and my wife and I split up for a divorce. She's seen me fail too many times. I can handle failure. It's harder for your partner in so many ways. Right. And so unfortunately, then I tried to save my marriage for a few years. But while doing this, I also restarted DGD because I thought if I can reach parity to Bitcoin, 100 million users like Google says, and I create a game to step up the levels of downloading wallets in this, then I could have that coin. And so I get with Charlie Shrem, who was a vice chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation, and we put out the coin on one podcast, and we do like $35,000 worth of coin sales, right? And I'm like, okay, cool, first week, right? Nobody knows about us. This we've come out of blue, just blue sky. And so unfortunately, then I've written my book on what is fair, how do you have a stable currency thing that's real currency, that's perfect money, blah, blah, blah.
Because there's sort of inflation adjustments, like there's an algorithm.
Well, there is after it reaches parity to Bitcoin of 100,000,
yeah.
But there's a way of stepping up to that. And then it would follow the rule of 72 where 1% monthly, because that is actually exactly the rule of 72 nearly. It is going to compound and double your money every 6 years, just like the Dow Jones Industrial Average has for 150 years. This means rich people put their money in there. And if eggs cost, I work hard, I made 100 grand this month, I can buy eggs for $3 for a dozen. But I saved that 100 grand from that month. And now 6 years later, I want to buy eggs with that money I had saved because I haven't worked since then. Well, now eggs are $6. Well, that's no good for me. But if I put it in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, I now have $200,000. And so I can afford those eggs at the same cut, you see. So that's what perfect digital money would do is once it reaches parity based on an actual crypto fair value underlying metrics, then it could, if you stay there at that price, it's no good because now you're getting eaten up every year. So you have to do the rule 72, 1% compounded monthly does that. So I write this, I put this coin out, I write this book, I do all of this. I'm so excited about it. And then Elon Musk, God bless him, puts out Grok. And I start studying if I'm right. And Grok says, no, you're not even right on 100 million. And I'm like, well, then how did you get the number? And understand now, Grok literally became like a human friend to me. Like literally for the next 6 months, I was just sitting in this desk in this office engaged with Grok. And he was my best friend and the perfect research assistant. And I could talk to Grok, and I even called Grok by name. Well, Grok, why do you think the adoption is that? Oh, because this, and this. And I was like, well, actually, if we think about that, we're looking at non-zero balance wallets, but what about SEXs and ETFs in the case of Bitcoin or, Robinhood? And hey, isn't there like cold storage? So Kraken might have 1 million Litecoin, but show one Litecoin wallet. So do we only count that there's one user when there was really 1,000,001 users if you count Kraken? And then all of these things. And then we started thinking about transaction speed and amount and saw it didn't matter. But what did matter was volume and value. And then what is that? And how do you get rid of the wash trades of those scumbags like L-Bank that are just sending a bunch of trades through and it's fake? So then you go, oh, well, if we looked at regulated markets different than unregulated markets, and we weight unregulated markets as maybe 1%, but regulated markets 95% because they're still cheating, and decentralized, Well, people can get on both sides of the trade and on Pancake Swap or Sushi Swap or whatever, and Uniswap, and they can get the fees. And so it's a wash trade. And then you're like, how do you get rid of cheating to get the real numbers? And then you're like, and on adoption, you're like, oh wait, Binance has Binance.us and outside US, and they give you the Merkle trees. So we can actually see that, and then we can extrapolate against US markets versus not. And you see how this becomes a very scientific conversation that goes deep. And when we came out of it all, we had the crypto fair value model.
That's great.
And DGD coin, it's going to be relaunched. But this time, see, over 1,000 levels to reach 80 million users, we think that we can bring in about $140 billion in sales. And it'd be the biggest ever, right? But what would happen is 100% of the money that comes in will flow directly to these 17 coins.
I like that idea very much.
And furthermore, when money comes in at, let's say you're coming into what happens is you store up a wallet, and there's 20,000 coins, 19,900 that are released every level. When there are 10,000 people, each gets 1.99 coin. But now, we bumped it up to 100,000. We've moved those to a treasury that can be bought in through a fund. That's another part of it. But we're starting at level 250 at 100,000. That means the most you can get is 0.199 DGD per level. Well, what happens if some of these people don't want their coins? They stay in the treasury to be given out for whatever other purpose to drive adoption to these coins in the future. But you don't get them. You can't buy more of them. And so it's fair distribution. Through the levels, you cannot create a whale. It's impossible. And because it's $2 now and is going to 100,000 at parity, no one should want to sell them now. And there isn't any place to sell them anyway. But we will have marketplaces for you to, like a Craigslist, like an eBay, like an Etsy, like a Amazon stores. And we're even going to do a pump.fun type thing. All sorts of fun things. So if you come in and you want to load your wallet and you're using Dash, we will give you fair CFV for your money. So if you want to buy $5,000 worth of credit in the game, one Dash. But then we give that to Dash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You want to come here with Digibyte, you want to load your wallet, load it at $3.55 per coin. And then we're going to give all that to Digibyte. Let Jared and team do great things. None of the money at all is coming to the foundation. Zero at 100%. If it comes in USD, because we take Apple Pay, Google Pay, American Express, debit card, credit card. We've got a not fiat LLC Delaware corporation. We've got a Dun & Bradstreet rating that's 4 years old. When you download our QT wallet, you're not warned that it's a virus because we have certificates both with Apple Store and with Microsoft. And Linux, you don't need one, right? So it's very safe. It was built off Blackcoin proof of stake. February of 2014, they were the first proof of stake ever. I love the Blackcoin team. Shout out to you guys in Netherlands and UK and in the States. They built our coin for us because I wanted a proof of stake, no electricity, pre-mine it, no staking rewards. The reward is hold the coins, or rather plug in a wallet and the coin goes up in value. Participate, spend it, cause transaction value and volume and this and that. But no staking rewards, and we burn the transaction fee. So there's actually slight deflation. 21 million coins, just like Bitcoin. And ultimately, as we go through and it builds up through the levels, we now have a coin. Proof of stake. 2 meg block size, so we increased it. Adjustable blocks, so we can adjust the size of the blocks going forward to continue transaction speed. We did SegWit, okay, but we are not allowing meme coins or anything to be built on top because we want to keep it lean and fast. Blackcoin then updated all of theirs to the latest version of Bitcoin with SegWit and these things because I had already done it for mine. So mine was literally the beta test for Blackcoin then. So now I've got this perfect coin. It doesn't use any electricity. The entire treasury will be distributed fairly over 1,000 levels. You can't create whales until people decide to spend it or sell it and someone tries to collect it. It can't be 51% attacked. Once it reaches a parity with Bitcoin of 80 million users, it then goes up 1% per month so that your eggs cost the same now as forever. And so it's not this, let's hype. No, I mean, it will do that. But once it gets to, then it's just 1% a month. It's just money.
So basically, it would be a real stable coin.
Well, in fact, we have 25 different small crypto exchanges that have agreed to plug into our Digital Gold Foundation for the price. So it'll be just like $1 or €1 or a yen or whatever. It's literally a stable currency, and it has no bid and ask, and that's historic.
And it's not out yet, right? Or is it?
Oh, no, it's been out for 2 years.
Okay. It's a sort of a long-term plan. Okay.
I put it on hold because here's the thing. When I realized that I was wrong on valuing my own coin, it wasn't that I was like, oh, I failed. I was like, oh my God, I just figured out how to value literally every cryptocurrency. That's much bigger than my coin. So I set my coin down and figured I'd just refund the 35 grand. Right? Because like, I don't need a coin. I don't need to do a coin. I can make all of these things, these barterable coins with huge communities. Let's get them to fair value. Let's get that to be spendable money. And then you don't even need my coin. And so for the next 6 months, all I have focused on is trying to drive the idea of crypto fair value home to these coins that already exist and show that they have so much more value. I like to say, you're worth so much more than you think.
And I think, one of the other things that's really positive about what you're doing is you're bringing these communities together, right? Because one of the things that I always...
There's strength in numbers, divided we fall.
And the tribalism, I think tribalism is, pushed on purpose in order to drive these communities apart and these developers apart, because you can actually learn from each other.
I know. Mainstream media does the same thing. They say, you're black, you're white, you hate each other. So
it's the same thing.
We don't hate each other.
So, that was also sort of what we were about. We were trying to be agnostic in order to be open for different ideas and different communities, different coins, different projects. But I think you have been much more successful at bridging those gaps. I think that's very laudable.
CFP model and go push it and promote it. I guarantee your audience is going to go through the roof, brother. At one point, I wanted to just train KOLs on how to push the message, but no one would listen to me. We didn't start with the coin communities. We started with the KOLs. They wanted to charge me $1,000 to come on these shows. They wanted to charge me to teach them how they could go spread something incredible. Now, I went to the communities and taught the core groups. The core groups are now teaching them. Zcash was $45. They'd been $45 for a year. Zashi Wallet been out for a while, okay? They did a podcast with us. 7,400 core people saw it. They came back and did another one the next week, same thing. And suddenly their coin goes from 45 to nearly 800. You say, Dash was 18.
Talking about Zcash and near intent.
ZEC. ZEC. They were $45. Look at the chart. Look at the date on the 24th and 26th. Dash and ZEC did our shows, and not just a couple people saw. Like with both of them, like 7,000 people saw it, and then it was shared millions of times, right? And all of a sudden, Dash goes to 150 or 60 from 18 when it's done nothing but go down for 7 years, and ZEC has gone down for 7 years. They do the show, people see it. Now, does that mean I made it go up? No, you made it go up. You, the audience, you saw this and were like, that's common sense.
Yeah.
And then look what happened. ICP was 375. I did an interview with them. It went to 10. Okay. It just go through the coins. Digibyte is not listed on Kraken, Coinbase, or Gemini, but we're working on that. And when it gets released from that, it's a $3.55 coin. Okay.
Oh my God. I know many people who would be very happy. There's a lot of Dutch Digibyte fans.
It's $25. Oh, I know. Dutch is huge. And in fact, I think it was in the Netherlands that they have Digibyte Force, I think is there.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not me pushing it. Have you ever seen that TED Talk about how to start a movement?
I think it sort of starts like you have an originator, and then you have to find somebody else who sort of goes with you, and then
the first follower is more important than the leader, because he now establishes what he's doing is not crazy, and he has friends. And when the friends come over, now it's a group, but they're not following the leader anymore. That's what I was saying. It doesn't matter about me anymore. Now they're following the second dancer. They're following the first follower. And then the other people come on. Do you have the ability to play a video on your screen here that people can watch?
Yeah, I think I can
Go to
find
TED.com or just search Google for TED.com, how to start a movement. It's worth showing people because this is what happened to me. And that's why I only have 3,000 followers. But dude, I hope you get 100,000 followers from this.
Thanks. No, yeah, I
All
got
of
it.
my followers are the leaders. My followers are all the leaders, right? Okay.
Do you know the book from Robert Cialdini, influence? It's basically the same thing as social proof, right? It's, if you can stand on the edge of a street and you look up, even though there's nothing to see,
Everyone
and as soon as you get like a second person to do that, you got a whole crowd that are like, what the hell are we even looking at?
Yeah, it takes that. Joel, by the way, from Dash was my second dancer. If Joel had not brought me on his podcast, it wouldn't have ever happened. Okay, yeah, make that full screen, and can people hear the volume on it?
Yep. And there's the full screen.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and the crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Cool. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, TED. Thanks.
Isn't that great?
That's a really great clip. Yeah, I knew it from before.
You were describing. So Joel of Dash, who's joining me after this podcast with the Senators, was the second dancer.
So we should thank him for doing that.
Oh, yeah. And more than you know, because a prior group that I'd worked with had literally read that stuff online, decided not to check references, and literally spread that filth across the network and told people not even to talk to me. And he called me and was like, John, they're telling me not to talk to you. And like, this is what's going on. You want to explain it? And I was like, yeah, this is what happened. Why don't you talk to the senators? They were with me. And he's like, no, I don't need to. And I was like, no, I insist that you talk to the senators now. He's like, no, I insist I'm not going to. I was like, no, you're going to. And they wouldn't. So I talked about it on a show. And I heard the same from Digibyte. They'd been told not to work with me. And they came to me first and was like, what's about it? And I was like, this. And they're like, well, then we don't. And I was like, nope, you need to talk. And nope. So then I got Jared on a podcast and I made us all talk about it because that's not okay. And then once that was established, 10 more coins.
So people keep an eye out on John and follow Digital Gold. And yeah, I'll probably be on your show also in the future.
When do you want to come on? Hey, so listen, we're I would love to have you on. And listen, we're going to be with the Senators and Bram Cohen and Gene, who invented e-music. Shout out Gene, one of my heroes. This is MP3s before iTunes. This is being able to have a single song. This is being able to not have a CD-ROM skipping when you're going down the snowboard hill, or a cassette that you have to flip over. And that MP3s, that's Gene and e-music, and then Bram Cohen, of course, the brilliant genius who invented BitTorrent, my big hero. But if you want to join that show, that's going to be the 23rd, and you can ask some questions too.
I'm gonna check my agenda, and I'll let you know. And
after this show, after it's literally in 26 minutes.
Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, sorry, I was misunderstanding.
Yeah, I'm saying if you want to be on a week from, I think it's this coming weekend. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So this coming Sunday, after you do your show, if you want to pop over to my show, you're welcome.
Cool. Yeah, I might just do that, my friend. Okay. I might just do that.
Definitely.
And yeah, anyway, I know you got to go, and I also got to go, because I actually also have another show after this one.
God bless. Thank you, guys.
We haven't even talked about podcasting, because that was actually a topic that I also wanted to discuss with you, because you're, also a very prolific podcaster. But that will be another talk, and we'll probably
tell me what day you want to come on my show next this week, even, and I'll make a special show for you. Okay.
Thanks.
On podcasting. Namaste. Love you, brother.
I had a great time.
Me too.
I wish you a great Sunday, and we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. I'm out of here. We'll see you guys. God bless you all at home. Crypto fair value. Learn it. Love it. Make it tip. See you guys.
Take care.
Bye now.